1. I'm 17 now, and this happened when I was around 9 or 10, so basically a good 7 or 8 years ago. Years 1 to 6 were gathered in the assembly hall, and I could sense the worry in each teacher's face. I was a naive, gullible child, as is any 9 or 10-year-old. However, I could still sense when someone was worried or afraid. Our head teacher came and sat on a chair at the front of the room, and started to talk about stranger danger. And we should only go away from school with someone we know, and only speak to people we know. She also told us that there will be a very important letter handed to us at the door, and we were supposed to take that to our parents tonight. School had finished, and I gave my mum the letter upon meeting me in the playground. She read the letter and the smile on her face dropped. And then I was given another lecture on stranger danger, and we totted off home. Everything was normal on this day, and everything was good. It was the next day where things got out of hand. When I got up to have breakfast the next morning, I noticed she had put the letter up on the fridge, and as my reading skills were still a little crappy, I only read some of the letter. However, a few months ago I brought this situation up to my mum, and she explained what the letter had said. White male, 6'2", bald, driving a silver BMW, said to be attempting to lure young girls in his car, and explaining he will take them to see his puppies. This man has attempted several times, and we are to be careful with the children. My mom explained to me that tonight, instead of her picking me up, her work friend Robert is going to do the honors of bringing me to her work. I have met Robert only once before, so my memory of him was still shady. However, I agreed, and my mum dropped me off at school. When school was over, I walked out of the gates and went over to the pickup zone. Now, like I said, naive and gullible, 9 or 10-year-old girl. I stood there for a few minutes, knowing that Robert was probably late. My memory of Robert was hazy, as I'd only met him once. So when this bald man approached me, I presumed it was Robert.
"Hello there. Your mummy sent me to pick you up today," the man exclaimed.
"So you're Robert?" "Yes, I know, naive."
"I am, little one. Come with me and I'll get you home,"
he said with his hand out, raised to me. I didn't sense any red flags, as I just presumed this was Robert. I took his hand, and a smile grew on his face.
"You have beautiful ginger hair,"
he said hoarsely. At this point, I did start to feel a little odd. The man's voice sounded maniacal, and I started to realize that there was a possibility that this wasn't Robert. I loosened my grip slightly, and I felt his fingers tighten around my dainty hand. And I go, "You're not Robert, are you?" I see his eyes wince, and his smile becomes a frown. We stand dead in our ground, and he crouched down to my size and grips my arms.
"No, Gingy, I'm not, but your mother sent me."
His face becomes serious, and I start to shake uncontrollably. "No, my mum said Robert." I start to squirm, and I cry. My heart thuds harder, and I try to scream, but his meaty fingers dig into my arms. He growls, "Come on," and attempts dragging me. Further down the street, I heard, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I saw fear in the tall man's eyes. I turned to see the real Robert running towards me and the man. The man loosens his grip on my hand and runs away from me until Robert catches up to me. He hugs me tightly, and I burst into tears. He holds me in his arms and asks me if I'm okay. He picked me up and carried me to his car, and in about 15 minutes the police were at my school. I made my report, and Robert took me to McDonald's before taking me to my mum's work. 3 days later, there was another assembly at my school, and the head teacher had another chat about stranger danger, and gave us another letter explaining how important it is. This letter my mum did not post on the fridge, and not too long ago I asked her what it said. She told me this. 8-year-old Keely had been snatched from the school playground, and now is nowhere to be found. A parent must be there to pick up their child 30 minutes before the end of school. Sign their name and take their child from the school until it becomes safe again. 5 months after Keely's kidnapping, her body was found. Her parents didn't want to make a news story and wanted to keep the issue private to their families. However, information leaked, and there were signs of sexual abuse. Honestly, I'm glad that Robert caught up to me and the man in time before I met Keely's fate. I wish all the best to Keely's family, and the man was never found. To the bald man, let's not meet again. 2. First, a little background. I'm a female in my mid-30s, and I live in a country that is poor, where thieves are common and the police are useless. When I first moved into my house, I was told it was a relatively safe area, no break-ins for years. Apparently. It's a duplex-style house. I live on one side with my boyfriend, and on the other side is a couple with a baby. It's in a middle-class neighborhood, and the complex is surrounded by a cement fence, although not a terribly high one. I have 2 dogs, and for the past few months they'd go on heavy barking jags at intermittent periods throughout the night. We didn't think much of it, until the thieves got into the compound, stole my computer through the window, and stripped our car. Then we hired a guard. He's an excellent guard, bow and arrow for protection. And he is very serious about his job. He stays awake all night, patrols. I've stayed up late to watch a few times. And when the dogs bark, he goes on high alert. A few times he's caught them trying to climb the fence, but each time they escape. The area we live in has a lot of vegetation, easy to hide and escape in. I'm worried they will try to poison my dogs or actually really hurt the guard, since both are so good at defending the house. I started taking a Krav Maga class a few months ago for peace of mind. It's every Tuesday, and I noticed that every time I come home from class, they come around later that night. The first time I noticed, I was super pumped up from disabling machetes all afternoon, and my guard wasn't there yet. The dogs started going crazy, and I knew someone was trying to climb the fence, based on where they were barking. I screamed, "Get the fuck out of here!" through my window, and then yelled, "Thief!" over and over. They didn't come back that night. But now I've noticed every fucking Tuesday they come, almost without fail. This last Tuesday they threw rocks at the dogs on one side of the compound, and on the other side, trying to get the guard's attention. They even called the guard by name, trying to confuse him. If it was just one guy, I'd be confident in taking him down. I know how to fight. Krav Maga is new, but self-defense isn't. But I think it's at least 3 or 4 guys, based on them calling the dogs over to one side and calling the guard on the other. I set up Viet Cong-style panji traps along the fence, but so far they haven't tripped them. Worst yet, the man in the home attached was robbed 2 minutes from our house last Friday. The taxi he was taking home broke down just 2 minutes away from us, so he decided to walk it around 3 a.m. 2 guys came out of nowhere and threw him to the ground and put a knife to his throat, taking everything he owned. I have no idea what to do. Moving isn't an option, and the police offer no protection. I'm starting to wonder if I should get a shotgun, illegal here, on the black market, and fill the cartridges with rock salt so I don't kill them, but scare the fuck out of them. All I know is they will come back. They always do. And this Tuesday I'm thinking of hiding with my machete in the bushes outside my home and waiting for them. That said, I'm a petite woman, so the idea is slightly daunting. But I'm terrified they'll kill my dogs because they're such good alarm systems. The guard, to his credit, loves the dogs immensely, and if he sees a bone he doesn't recognize in the yard, he throws it back over the fence. Basically, I feel like I'm out of options. Edit. After they took my computer, I went around the neighborhood and put a bounty on their head. Said I'd pay $200 to the person who brought me the thief. But insisted they had to bring the thief to me, not the police, because I want to deal with them myself. So I imagine they know what I have in store for them if they are caught. Honestly, I don't want to kill them. I just want to incapacitate them from climbing walls and fuck them up royally. But killing thieves in Uganda is a thing. I mean, it's a dangerous profession. If caught, they are always beaten within an inch of their life. And if it's a large enough offense, I've seen them killed. It's not pretty. So the fact that I'm not threatening to put a tire around them and light it on fire makes me merciful, I suppose. 3. This took place in 2013. After graduating college, I was about to embark on a summer-long road trip that I had been planning for over a year. At the last minute, my friends bailed on me, but being the adventurous sort, I decided not to let it stop me. So I packed up the guitar and went on my way. This is how I came to be a 26-year-old girl road-tripping it across the country alone. Since I was very poor, I was camping in national forests or rest stops and living out of a borrowed minivan. All was going well and I was having the time of my life. However, a few months in, I had made it to California and was traveling around the Vallejo, San Francisco area. One night, I was looking for a new place to camp, and I found myself on a Bay Area highway wrought with unusual detours. Because the detours were confusing and poorly marked, I found myself driving through a small town, uncertain if I was still following the detour or not. It was about 9 p.m., but since it was a small town, no one seemed to be out and about to ask directions from. I tried to use my phone, but the signal was crummy, and my phone sucked to begin with. Figures, I mumbled, and threw my useless phone on the passenger seat. It seemed I was getting out of town and into some kind of warehouse district. But I could see the highway up ahead in the distance, so I decided to head towards it. The single road I was on led me through rows of factories, but there was nowhere to turn off. I was still headed towards the highway, so I kept on. I passed an old, large car. I'm terrible at identifying cars, but it's the kind you would call a boat. Very cool, classic car kind of thing, in the parking lot of a factory. When I passed, he switched on his headlights and pulled out behind me. I honestly didn't think anything of it. I figured the poor guy was lost too, and followed me thinking I knew where I was going. I continue on for a while, with him still behind me, and I finally reach where the highway passes over the road. Much to my dismay, I turned the corner into a gravel lot of sorts that dead-ended into a fence right underneath the highway. There was no way to get onto the highway. This is where it gets creepy. The gravel area was about 2 lanes wide, but the large car pulled up behind me directly in the middle, so I couldn't get around him. This raised an immediate red flag, but I tried to convince myself that he was just a lost guy and his parking in an inconvenient way was merely an accident. However, I didn't want to get out of the van and ask him to move, so I began trying to come up with a plan. I pulled a little farther towards the fence, as if trying to make a U-turn. I already knew there would not be enough room. But what he did next frightened me. As the nose of my van came up against the fence, he pulled up to the fence too, at an angle, blocking me from going any further. Now I knew he was up to no good. And now I could get a look at him, as we were very close to each other. He had a baseball cap, a crazy ZZ Top style beard. To give you a picture, I was in the right of the 2 lanes. with the crazy man blocking me to the left and to my right was 3 cement pylons, what you usually see blocking off highway construction, running the length of the lot, with the car width, not length, but the width of the front of the car in between them. Here is where I take a bow to the gods of dumb luck, as I saw something in those pylons that most would not. You see, prior to this road trip, I had spent 8 years as a bus driver, and much of that time was spent training new drivers. One of the maneuvers on the commercial driving test in my state was called the backward serpentine. To pass, you had to back the bus through 3 cones positioned in a straight line. Since the cones are only a bus width apart, not length, you must turn at exactly the right time to master this move. It was very similar to what I was looking at now, although doing it with cones is a little different than a cement block, because if I crashed into a cement block, I would certainly not be able to drive out of there, and who knows what this man had in mind. I gunned it in reverse, keeping the maneuver I had taught so many in my head. Keep in mind, driving tests are graded on accuracy, not speed. So this was the first time I ever had to do this fast. By the time I had made it around the second pylon, he realized what was happening. But because he had a big car and was pushed up against the fence, it took him a few wiggles to get turned around. By then I had completed my maneuver and took the fuck off back down the road. He followed, but there was no way to know if he was chasing me or fleeing, as there was only one way in or out of this place. I was scared because I was still lost, and presumably this man knew the area if he had picked this spot to wait for lost tourists. So I wasn't out of the woods yet. Pumped, full of adrenaline, I screamed out of the open window, "You picked the wrong girl to play driving games with, motherfucker!" I then heard a tiny robotic voice say, "No results for driving games, motherfucker." I was confused for a minute, then remembered the useless navigator on my phone, which I had discarded. It had been flung to the floor of the passenger side during the ordeal, and I wasn't about to stop to grab it, so I just began screaming, "I-80!" at the top of my lungs. Finally the phone heard me and gave me directions back to the highway. I drove around the area highways, stopping at gas stations to observe other vehicles getting off at least a few times, to make sure I wasn't being followed. Luckily, it was a pretty distinctive car. But still, I did this for over an hour before I felt safe enough to camp out. So, creepy bearded man, let's not meet. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 156. I would of course like to say a big thanks to everyone who allowed me to use their stories in this video. And I'd also like to say thank you very much to all my new subscribers. I recently passed the 26,000 subscriber mark. So thank you and welcome. I would of course also, as always, like to say thank you very much to all my pre-existing subscribers for sticking with me. With so many narrators out there these days, you're kind of spoiled for choice when it comes to what people do, so I'm always very grateful that people continue to watch and support my content. Okay, where are we? This will be out on Monday, so let's see. The rest of the week we'll have subscriber stories tomorrow, we'll have subscriber stories on a Tuesday, more scary stories on Wednesday. Not sure about Thursday yet, possibly Glitch, not certain, not set in stone. And as usual, Paranormal on Friday, and I've already got a start on a TIFU, so we should be good for a TIFU come Saturday. We'll also at some point this week be recording the night before Christmas, or is that the proper title of that? Let me check. I did have it saved somewhere. A Visit from St. Nicholas. Yeah. Ah, yes, there is. A Visit from St. Nicholas, more commonly known as The Night Before Christmas, and so on. Yeah. So, I'll have that coming out later in the week. That was a special request for someone. I apologise, I can't recall your name off the top of my head right now. but I'm doing that because you asked very, very nicely. And I think we can wrap it up there for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.